Today we're going to be talking about MSM, Maastricht School of Management, and more specifically about why consider choosing us, and so what would make us unique in this experience. And so we'll be talking about that a bit more. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Hermina, and I'm in charge of the enrollment and career services at Maastricht School of Management. So that means that the enrollment team, we try to take care of everything from the first time you're in contact with MSM all the way through to when you have graduated and have become an alumni. So that also includes the career services, the student services, the alumni services, the administration, admission services, and then of course the recruitment services. And today with me in the webinar, I have Wessel, our recruitment officer. Now Wessel unfortunately has lost his voice due to the cold, the weather here in Europe at the moment. But Wessel will be managing the chat function. So throughout this webinar, if you have any questions, if I've talked too quickly, or if something's not clear, or if you're not sure if I've covered it or not, just put the question in the Q&A tab. So there's a section for questions and the Q&A, and then also you can always put it in the chat if you want to. But ideally, he will manage the Q&A section. And Wessel will also collect some of these questions, and he'll ask them again at the end of the webinar so that also these questions can benefit everyone. Also throughout the session, I might ask Wessel to add some links so that you can also check them out if I make a reference to them. More importantly, though, today, no offense, Wessel, I want to myself, but we have two guests joining us for this webinar. We have someone from the MBA, Malomi, and then we have someone from the Master in Management, Simon. And I'm actually going to ask you both to introduce yourself. Let's start with Malomi. If you can just tell us where you're from and maybe why you decided to do an MBA.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Malomi Gibson, and I'm from South Africa. Yeah, sometimes sunny, sometimes not. So I decided to do my MBA. It's always been one of my things, bucket list, that I wanted to do. But I basically wanted to do a one-year MBA, and I was looking at a lot of different business schools and decided on Maastricht because it was such an international campus, and it was also quite centrally located in Europe because you've got a few other countries that are just beyond the borders of Maastricht. So I wanted to get a bit of an experience of an international business school, but also English speaking. So that was also quite important to me. So yeah, that's why I embarked on my MBA.
Thank you, Malomi. And Simon, what about you?
Below, I can just add a little bit to this because my aims were almost the same. Yeah, I'm Simon from Germany. The weather is also like the Dutch weather today, a little bit cold and rainy. But my decision was, besides the weather, to go to the Netherlands to get a little bit more international experience than, for example, only in the German-speaking areas. And it was for me an aim to meet international groups of international people and also get in touch with different kinds of cultural backgrounds. And yeah, I also liked the thing to get a double degree from Maastricht University and MSM. And this was one of the most and most important thing I chose in my decision for a business school or university.
Thank you, Simon. Now, throughout this webinar, I'll be asking Malomi and Simon a little bit about their experiences, and also same for you as participants in this webinar. If you have any questions for our alumni, don't hesitate to put it in the chat, and that will also be taken into consideration at the end when we have the Q&A. So talking a little bit about the topics of the day, we're going to look at several sections of the decision you'll be making. The first one is obviously why choose the Netherlands specifically. And then more, we focus a bit deeper, we're going to why Maastricht as a city, because obviously there are several cities in the Netherlands to choose from when choosing a university. And then, of course, within Maastricht, there are also, once again, several options. So why MSM? And then we'll look at the various things that we like to consider as the MSM experience and what makes us unique. After that, we'll go into the practical information. So in that section, we'll talk about what you need to be able to apply. So what makes you eligible, also the pricing, the scholarships. So all of that will be covered in the practical info section. And then, as mentioned at the end, the Q&A. Vessel will highlight some of the key questions he received, and we'll go through those again. Okay. So let's look at why the Netherlands specifically. So a few fun facts. For those of you that don't know exactly where the Netherlands is, it's in the middle of Western Europe. So if you zoom it out like this, you can see it's close to the UK. It's about 3 hours by train. It's on the border of Belgium and Germany. Also, Denmark is very close by. France is close by. So we're about 3 hours away from Paris. So about 2 hours from Luxembourg, an hour from Brussels, an hour from Cologne. And so it's a very central country. But also very important is that the Dutch are very fluent in English and a very international country. So very open towards foreigners, but also the fact that you can speak English with anyone, anywhere, that's definitely something that makes a difference. And in fact, of all the countries in the world that have English as an official second language, the Dutch are the most fluent in English. And so this also makes it that the Netherlands is often seen as one of the top 5 education systems for higher education in the world. And one of these reasons is because of its unique teaching methods. So it's a very personalized problem or case-based learning approach, which we will cover later on. The degrees are recognized worldwide because of all the rankings and accreditations. But most importantly is generally, when you compare it to the other top ranked education systems in the world, well, the Netherlands is very well known for its value for money, the education system. Now, the Dutch culture itself, as I mentioned, they're very open-minded, tolerant, quite famous for being direct. So they don't beat around the bush when they need to talk to you about something. But it's quite a refreshing approach for our students when they come from the various countries. And then also, very importantly, after you've studied in the Netherlands for your MBA or your Master in Management, you can stay in the Netherlands for a whole year to look for a job. And so this is via the orientation year permit. And then also always good to know is the Netherlands is one of the happiest countries in the world, thanks to its very healthy work-life balance. So our students often find that it is a very different experience to when they were working in their own countries. People actually enjoy their time off here in the Netherlands. It's a much more healthy approach towards that. So that's a little bit about the Netherlands. Now, Maloma, you already spoke about this briefly. You said you chose the Netherlands because of the English factor. What were the other considerations, when you decided to go to the Netherlands? Does this reflect also your decision-making approach, or were there other factors as well?
Yeah, so English was quite important to learn because in a master's degree, you learn so many things. You don't really have that much time to learn a new language and then also study in that language. So it was quite important to me to have a language that I could understand. And the Netherlands, most of the universities here, if not all, study in English. So that was quite important. But aside from that, what I found really interesting was the fact that there's a 1-year MBA, and that kind of limits it to Europe and specifically the Netherlands. So the 1-year MBA means that you can do your course in 1 year and finish that. And that also means that it's value for money as well. Like you've got a lot of value that you get out of this because you don't need to go out there and look for internships for a long period of time or to study for 2 or 3 years looking at that. So those were the main things that I looked for as well.
Yeah. And Simon, for you, I mean, you're basically a neighbor coming from Germany, right? What was your decision and why didn't you stay in Germany? That could have been a very valid option. It's also one of the top education systems in the world.
Yeah, definitely. But I also agree with Maloma about the 1-year program, because in Germany it's normally 2.5 years. And without these international factors, and also every company today requires English as a standard language. And I like the idea to practice it more, to speak it more fluently, and also to study in it and make a master's degree in 1 year with all these positive factors, and also the practical learning approach. I like to do practical stuff in my studies. It's something that I could find in the Netherlands. So that's why I choose the Netherlands.
Perfect. Just out of curiosity, did either of you travel during your studies? Did you go and see other countries?
Simon, okay. I'll go first, that's fine. Yes, I went to quite a number. So the neighboring countries was a given. So Germany and Belgium went there quite a bit. We actually went there as a class for the Christmas market in Aachen, which is in Germany. So that was one. Belgium went there as well. Czech Republic visited there as well. So I did go to a number of the surrounding countries around. Yeah.
Nice. And you, Simon?
Same for me. I also visit a lot of cities like Den Haag in the Netherlands. I wasn't there before, for example. And also like Belgium and Vienna was also a trip. Yeah. And it was a nice opportunity for Maastricht. You can go everywhere. It's a good place to stay.
Yeah, I know it's one of the highlights, always often these little class trips, going out with the bonding with one another, experiencing the different countries. And then more specifically, Maastricht. Now, the students often describe Maastricht as a city that's small enough to feel at home in and big enough to not get bored in. Now, just to give the people in this webinar an idea of where Maastricht is, if you follow the arrow, you'll see it's squished in between Belgium and Germany. So it's 10 minutes away from the Belgium border and about 25 minutes away from the German border. So it's a really unique international location like this. But Malomi, if you think about, coming from South Africa and you arrive in Maastricht and you think back at those moments, what stood out for you about the city?
Well, I got to Maastricht and I thought that the whole of the Netherlands was kind of like this, very old, very cobblestones kind of thing. So I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this is so old. But then I started to look around and see things, and I started to see a lot of charm and vibrancy and hidden things that you don't normally see in a lot of other places. So one of the things is going around to different museums and finding out the different history and the different ways in which people used to live in Maastricht. That was, for me, quite a good experience. And the weather was a bit good. When I got here, it was still quite nice in September. September, October was quite hot. But then it got really cold really quickly. But what I liked about that was I'd never seen snow before. And so coming here, then I got to see snow a number of times. And that was quite exciting for me as well. So the city was vibrant, even during the Christmas times and the times when it was snowing and cold. Yeah,
Definitely. And ironically, Maastricht is always a little bit warmer than the rest of the Netherlands, so there's still hope.
Yeah.
And Simon, for you, obviously you compare it to German cities. So what stood out for you about Maastricht? What makes it special?
Out of my point of view, it was definitely the bike using thing, that I can use my bike everywhere. It was possible to go everywhere by bike. This is something I definitely like in Germany too. And also you can meet people everywhere. We were also like in groups outside meeting the MBAs, were like playing football. We were doing something in the old town, in the younger parts of Maastricht. It's a good mix in the city. So like I knew Cologne, but Maastricht is a little bit like modern and super digital, for example, at the same point. And this mix is something I guess it's unique in the Netherlands. And I definitely like the city, and also like to come to visit and go somewhere by bike, by bus, whatever.
Yeah. Well, Maastricht is famous for being a little bit more laid back than the rest of the Netherlands. It's a bit more, it's where the Dutch people sometimes go on holiday because it's got more hills, it's a bit more pretty and different. But also I read an interesting fact this week. Actually, I didn't know this, but the Maastricht is about 34% cheaper than the other big cities in the Netherlands for housing and for just food and restaurants and everything. So I thought, hey, that's a fun fact to share today.
Yep. Can I also add, Armina?
Yes, go.
Part of the vibrancy was carnival. It's a really fun time at the beginning of the year, and that really adds to like people coming out and vibrant colors, and it's just a huge carnival where everyone comes and celebrates, you know. So that was also one of the highlights that I saw in Maastricht. It's a really fun experience, and it doesn't happen in the whole of the Netherlands. It basically happens in the south, where Maastricht is one of the places that celebrates it. Yeah.
Good points. Good points. It is a very fun moment always. Thanks for reminding me. Now, other things about Maastricht, obviously, for people coming from abroad, it is a city where you do feel safe, and it is a student city. So like Simon said, you'll be constantly contacting, working with other students, and just, you know, when you go out, it's a very young, vibrant feel. So that's also just reassuring. Now we get to why Maastricht School of Management. So when you look at all these different business schools and universities, what should you consider? So the first thing I wanted to highlight are a few of the more boring facts, but that's important to know, is that Maastricht School of Management became part of the University of Maastricht 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago. And the University of Maastricht is quite famous for being a young university. So it's one of the top 10 younger universities worldwide, with a lot of innovation and focus on sustainability. In fact, this year it's the MBA was ranked as the third best sustainable MBA worldwide. So we're very proud of that. The ranking just came out last week. And also, obviously, the university and MSM has therefore the Triple Crown accreditation. So your degree is recognized by AACSB, AMBA, and EQUIUS, which is awarded only to the top 1% of all business schools. So it's also just reassuring to know that your degree is recognized both in the Americas and in Europe and in other continents as well. And then also good to know is that the campus itself, where Maastricht School of Management is situated, it's a very beautiful campus. There's parks and little deer and birds, and it's there's a little river and a castle wall, and it's really, really quaint, but it's and peaceful. But at the same time, it's all built on a very modern campus. It was all renovated, and it's actually the first sustainable building, university building in Europe. So it's something that the university is also very proud of. But then when you look at Maastricht itself, Maastricht School of Management, we're actually one of the oldest business schools in the Netherlands. We were founded in 1952, which means more than 70 years old. And we've always just specialized in management and MBA. So our degree really does do the focus on the general business administration and management experiences. So we don't do bachelor degrees. We don't in 1,000 different topics. We really just do this because that's what we're good at. And we have, as Simon and Malome both said, we really have this international feel, and I'll talk about a little bit more just now, but since 2018, we did a brief calculation earlier, and we have more than 90 nationalities in the last 5 years that have gone through and done our MBA and Master in Management programs. So that makes it quite unique as well from that experience. Obviously, you have your 3 border location that we've talked about, these company visits, and then, as mentioned, MSM is very focused on the sustainability, the network that you have worldwide, and then the teaching experience, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail in the next slide. But before I go further, I actually wanted to ask Malome and Simon, maybe let's start with Simon this time, from an international perspective. If you look back at the nationalities that were in your class, because you had quite a few interesting nationalities, what was an a nationality that you'd never thought you would meet in person? You're something like, oh, wow, that is interesting.
Good question, Hermina. I guess for the MMs, I was quite curious about the opportunities and perspectives for people from Iran, for example. like because it's a very difficult situation, very political and a lot of trouble. So we were always like discussing in class what is happening and how we can understand what's going on there. So I wasn't expecting these very interesting and very open-minded discussions. So also when we got different discussions with people from the US and then from Iran and then Germany, India, everyone got his part in the discussion and got a chance to place his opportunity about a political situation or about a theme. So I was quite curious, for example, about meeting people from Iran directly.
Yeah.
This was something I wasn't expecting before.
Great. And what about you, Mallory?
The one I saw in the chat is someone from Lebanon. So Lebanon was quite an interesting one for me because it's not a country that you really think about. It doesn't always appear in the news. It's not really always at the center of things. And specifically, how beautiful the country is and how it's quite an interesting city as well as a country. Sorry, and just when people explain those different things and you're like, wow, you really want to go there. Yeah. And the second one would also be Guatemala. So I mean, South America is a huge place and you always think about Brazil, Argentina, but nobody ever talks about the smaller countries or the ones a little bit more north. So Guatemala was quite an interesting one where you start to speak to people about those type of ones. And similar to what Simon was saying, we had a lot of discussion with people from Iran, India. India was also another one because India is so big, you kind of dismiss it and say there's one type of Indian type of person, but there's so many different types of languages, nationalities, cultures. So knowing all of these things kind of just opened my eyes to, okay, there's more to the world than just looking at, okay, one person is from one region and that's it. Yeah.
Nice. Great to hear. Good that you had that experience. Just a little bit more before we go deeper into that, but also the MBA rankings. Normally, I don't focus too much on rankings. I prefer that students, when you're considering a business school, to look at accreditations. But it is always just good to know that the school has been ranked and it is well ranked. So our MBA was ranked as one of the top 10, number 8 for Western Europe. It's got a tier 1 business school ranking, and the Master in Management is also doing really well, number 17 in the top 200 international Master Management programs. So just also to reassure you about that. Just a little side note, today I will obviously be focusing more specifically on the online MBA, the full-time MBA and the Master in Management, because we are doing a separate webinar on the online MBA and it's coming up end of November, I think. So I think Bessel can share that information in the chat with you. So if there's anyone interested in our Global Flex online MBA, we will share that in the chat. Also, while I'm on this slide, I just wanted to highlight that today we're not going to talk about the differences and similarities about the program. We actually have a webinar coming up on that specifically as well. We will really look more into detail on which one is a better choice for you. Should you be looking at the MBA or should be looking at the Master in Management? So today we don't look at that into detail either. In brief, the Master in Management is for a younger type of profile, normally 0 to 3 years of working experience, and the MBA is from 3 years onwards. So that's already the most easiest distinction between the two. But we will do a whole different webinar on that coming up in the beginning of December. So I think, Wessel, if you can also just share that information in the chat when you have some time, and people can already find that if it's available. Right. Then let's talk a little bit more about the MSM experience in more detail. So the first thing we have mentioned is, and that's why I asked Simon and Malome about it, is a little bit about the international experience. And I think they both already mentioned in one of the reasons why they chose MSM, but it's also one of the things we're the most proud of. Because unlike a lot of business schools, when they say they're international, it's often focusing on surrounding nationalities. With MSM, I think you already heard that from Malome and Simon, but also if you look at just yourselves today, when we were asking to list where you're coming from, and we see how many people are logging in from all around the world, that's what the class experience is like. You have people from Lebanon, from Iran, from Russia, from India, from Egypt, from Guatemala, Mexico, all of them in one class. South Africa, obviously, Uganda, Zambia, and it just makes for an extremely rich learning environment. Because not only learning from your teachers, but you're also learning from one another. And I think that's also what both Simon and Malome were saying, is when you talk to your classmates and you start realizing, situation in Iran is going to be seen as very different to the same situation in America, and how these discussions go about. It's really eye-opening in that sense as well. So that is something that we're very proud of, and it's something that makes MSM very unique in the experience that the students get. So the reason why it's unique and why it's so important for us is because obviously it gives us new perspectives I was talking about, but also because of the professional networks. We've had students in the past that actually started businesses together thanks to their MBA or Master in Management experience. So we have, for example, 2 Master in Management students from 2 different years that connected through our alumni events. One is from Nigeria and the other one from Ghana, and they've started a really successful music business here in the Netherlands. And I don't know if Malome or Simon, you've been to one of their events, but they're doing really well for themselves. And we have other examples like that where people, network and create that. And I think also, Malome, you guys, your MBA, you had a really close group, Simon as well, for the Master in Management. But for the MBA specifically, I know that you had people from Colombia and Lebanon, and you were always learning from one another and experiencing that.
Yeah, and actually it was one of the things that I see is the highlight. There was a lady from Guatemala who had a business where she was trying to expand her business, and then she got consultants from within our class. So one of the consultants was from India, who helped with the design of a business, and then another one from Uzbekistan who helped with like the management and everything. So that was a really good collaboration, and that business is actually still taking off, and she's doing well in that. And yeah, and the one that you're speaking of as well, I think it was like an Afro vibes party kind of event. Yeah, so those are also quite interesting entrepreneurial ventures.
And it's all just thanks to this learning from one another and being open to that. I don't know, Simon, and you, if you had any experiences in your class like that?
Yeah, definitely almost the same, because we all had definitely different theoretical backgrounds in school. Like we all had different school systems, but in the Master Management course, we aggregated everything and took the advantage of our strengths. And we definitely learned a lot from each other, and I like this learning from each other, because I was thinking in my line, or I was thinking like I am doing it like this, but someone else had a way better idea, and another one had even a more better idea. And in the end, we were like a group who was pushing each other to the limit, and this was like fun, and it was also like a great success in the end to see our results in the group work and the work together with the people, and also with the partners in the consulting projects.
Yeah. It's ironic always, because it is something that people look forward to the most, the international vibe, the group works, but it's also one of the things they underestimate the most, on how difficult it will be to work with different nationalities. And it really is a skill that you learn, and there's going to be massive frustrations during the year. People that you're going to be like, I can't work to that person anymore. And then you go through it, you work through it with them. And by the end of the year, you realize how much you have grown as a person. And I think I see you both nodding, you both experienced that as well, right?
Yeah,
and absolutely.
I'll also say it's not just the MBA classmates that I had. I worked quite a bit with Simon, like you were saying. We often played soccer together. We would meet up on the corridors, and we just have a chat about how Germany's doing one thing, or like South Africa's doing something else. Like we would chat with different nationalities between the classes. So I had a lot of discussions with the Master in Management as well, coming from the MBA as well. Yeah.
No, good point. Thank you. Right. Then the next one I wanted to highlight is the teaching philosophy at MSM. We really believe that the best way to learn is by actually doing. And so by discussing, by having these group works, by meeting companies, by analyzing cases and then having guest lectures and all of that. So we try to make it with the theoretical basis that you obviously need for each course, because it is still a university master degree that you'd be doing, either the MBA or the Master in Management, but we try to make it as relevant as possible throughout the year in this case. Also some simulation games that you get to do at real life. I think, Malomi, did you do a simulation game with Dave?
Yes, we did do some of those simulations, yeah.
Yeah, and how was it?
It was really interesting. We got to do different cases and learn in terms of not just theoretical, but actually how real life works. So we had different cases that we worked on. Some of them were real, some of them were made up. But in terms of the simulation, we had a really good time in terms of teamwork. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And Simon, if you think back at this hands-on experience, because you said that's also why you chose the Netherlands, how was it for you?
Definitely something like the negotiation workshop where we had to negotiate in different teams together and against each other, and like accepting something maybe in the middle. So like we have to make a compromise. And also like the consulting projects in the companies, like I remember a mattress company where they produced from latex a mattress, and we had to work there in the international consulting team to find solutions for a more sustainable production line. And it was quite challenging, but also like a great success that in the end we could prove or show that something that we found out was actually helping this company to reduce their carbon monoxide and monoxide carbon footprint.
Nice. Challenging. I'm not sure if I'd be able to do that. But that's the advantage. Once again, you probably have some engineers in your group, you had some sustainable knowledge people, you'd have some marketing people, some finance people, and then all together you come up with a solution for the company. So you don't have to know everything, right? Great. Now, as I mentioned, we have a Master in Management and an MBA. In the MBA, we have a full-time version and a Global Flex online version. As I mentioned earlier today, I'll be focusing more on the full-time programs. If you do have any questions about the Global Flex online program, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. Vessel is there to manage all of that. But I just wanted to focus a little bit more on the difference between the two. So this is information from we still need to update for next year. So take the next 3 years cohorts. But on average, we have, as you can see, most of our Master in Management have about, I'd say 1 to 2 years of working experience, while the MBA has about 8 to 10 years working experience on average. We have nationalities coming from all over the world, as you can see, different job areas as well, which is also very important. It's not just the diversity in nationalities, but also in backgrounds, because then in these group works, you really get richer because of them. And then obviously the MM is a little bit of a younger profile than the MBA. The MM average age is somewhere between 23 and 27, and the MBA range is between 33 and 35, 36, and it depends. Every year is a little bit different, but this is the averages. And then what we have added on extra is the career and personal development track. So it is not something that is compulsory. It's an optional choice for students to participate in. But I know both you, Malomi, and Simon, you both participated in a lot of these events. But the way we've created the Career and Personal Development track, or CPDT, is we've created it 3 main pillars. So the first pillar is the skill development focus, where we look at career skills that you need to be able to stand out in the job market, like CV writing, motivation letter writing, helping you with interviews, networking skills, and things like that. We look at the personal development focus, but once again, more from a career perspective. So what are the things that you need to know about yourself to stand out in an interview. You know, what's going to help you to be able to achieve the career goals that you have. So looking at that perspective. And then we have the social element, which is also important, where we look at, for example, the networking side, the sustainable development side, debate nights. We do student competitions, and all these different type of things. We had an Earth Day event, we had a Women's Day event, just so that students become more aware of the societal impact and importance of the career element as well. And then obviously we have the extra support to help you throughout the year. And, you know, if you've got an interview that you need to prepare for, we help you with that. We have corporate week. We invite companies to come meet our students and talk to them. We have various job platforms with the jobs available, you know, for students to look at. We help with the CV review. We have a CV book that we send out. So those are some of the stuff that we do throughout the years with the students. Now, Malome and Simon. Let's start with Simon. Simon, when you look back at this, and you remember all the workshops that you did and events, because I know you also did part of the sustainable development competition, or, you know, what stood out for you? What really helped you in preparing you for your career?
For me, it was definitely the repetition of all these things you mentioned before. Was definitely something like doing presentations all day, like do it at least once a week in front of the class, talking, and also like be self-confident. Like you said, your improvisation skills were definitely something I learned a lot about myself, how I can react to maybe new situations very quickly. And also I learned a lot about myself doing the CV workshops, what I can mention about my strengths, weaknesses, but something I can also use to convince prospective employer to hire me. And also I want to mention the corporate week was quite a good thing to meet a lot of different companies. The elevator pitch, where I had to present myself in, I guess, 30 seconds was quite a challenging thing, but definitely a good lesson for me for prepare myself for the future job interviews. So I can assume that everything at all was a good thing to develop my personality.
Yeah, great to hear. What about you, Malome?
Yeah, definitely agree with Simon. We had multiple opportunities to present in front of classes. It was amazing to see people that have never presented before. Suddenly, for every different course, they're wanting to present now. After the 4th or 5th time, they're wanting to present. So there was a lot of that. One of the nice things as well was the cooking night, where we had to bring a dish from each country.
International dinner, yeah.
Yeah, international dinner. Thank you, the wording. So the international dinner, we brought a dish from each different country, and we shared in terms of, what do you eat in your country? What is this? How does it taste? So that was a good social event to kind of build us together. But for me specifically was the psychometric testing, where we did an understanding of where you are in terms of what you want, your career aspirations, and who you are as a person. We do that quite early on. And then when we did it again towards the end, it was valuable to see, have you changed because of some of the courses that you've done, some of the thesis that you write? Did you change because of the interactions with different people? And have you changed the things that you wanted in terms of your career? So for me, that really stood out. It got me to see where I want to be in terms of the career that I want to go after. And it helped me to organize my efforts into that particular one. So those were the nice things that I saw. And yeah, like you said, corporate week, also meeting the different companies. That was fun. Yeah.
Great. Thanks to both of you for confirming that. So just to summarize a little bit of what I've said regarding all of this, just when you look at MSM, obviously I haven't talked too much about the curriculum in detail. That will be in the webinar when we talk about more specifically the Master of Management and the MBA. But it is important to know that the topics and the way we teach, it's really to make you as relevant and hands-on as possible for the companies. In fact, we want you to hit the ground running when you actually start your work. And that is the feedback we often get from the companies, that the MSM students, they don't have to then still teach them how to work. You know, as soon as they start, they're able to, you know, start immediately and take on projects and go for it. There are some individual assignments for nearly each course, where you have to really start doing some self-learning. You have to go and do research for yourself. You have to learn to be a critical thinker. But there's also the group works that we've all talked about, where you really learn to have new perspectives, to be open-minded, and teach you communication skills, because you have to influence one another. Teamwork obviously is central there. The self-awareness that we've talked about is going to be very important in your personal growth throughout the years, and that's going to really help you stand out in the job market as well. The communication skills, the presentation, like Maloma said, you are going to be constantly presenting. At the end, it's just going to be like, oh, another presentation. And it's something that we really notice makes a huge difference in our students. The internationality, the diversity of our students, we've talked about, is something that is going to help you with the cultural awareness. Is becoming so important nowadays in the job market. Managing people with these different diverse backgrounds and coordinating with all of these different ways of doing things. We always, punctuality is always a good starting point. Understanding how time is considered in the different countries, and learning how to manage that, for example. And then we have the pressure cooker. Obviously, it is a 1 year, very intense, crazy year. Because Maloma, you said you chose the MSM MBA because it was 1 year, but that also meant, obviously, it was a crazy year, right? I think we can summarize it like that.
Yeah, 100%.
But when you finished, one of the students told me afterwards, an alumni from a few years ago, he said once he'd done the MSM MBA, after that, everything at work just seemed easy, because he was so used to time management, stress management, adapting to every situation, that, you know, he just felt like he couldn't manage anything after that. So it is also a really great way to prepare you for the job market. Simon, I see you nodding, right? You told me it's a lot of work right now for you.
Definitely. It was like, I mean, deadline was something we were always like talking about deadlines, and every weekend at some point it was something we just accepted. It was like, oh, next week, 3 deadlines, we have to submit this, this, and that. So it was, yeah, definitely challenging. It's a pressure cooker, like you said, Amina. But after this, you're prepared for everything. Like time managing is something you will definitely learn if you want or not.
Either that or you don't survive, right? But then you don't choose the MSM MBA or Master in Management. And then, as we've mentioned, you've got the career and personal development track, which is more the practical side of things, and putting all this knowledge and being able to find a job and using that in your career afterwards. So that's all a little bit about the MSM in general. So if you do have any questions about that, don't hesitate. Also afterwards in the chat, we'll talk about that. But now I just wanted to go through a little bit of practical information. So the first thing I wanted to highlight is that we have a difference in the pricing structure between 2023 and 2024. So for 2023, and this is very important, if you decide to apply to MSM before the 31st of December and pay, so it has to be, the money needs to be in before the 31st of December, then we still keep the 2023 prices. So the MBA, both the full-time and the online, the Global Flex, is 28,500. If you choose the Master in Management for 2023, the tuition fee was 16,000. Now, if you decide to join next year, so you don't apply this year, you don't pay this year, you join next year, that's totally fine. Applications are open until June. But if you do that, there is a price increase. I just wanted to highlight that. So the MBA for next year is moving up to 33,000. The online MBA stays the same, but there is a decrease in scholarships, which I'll share in the next slide. And the Master in Management, also an increase in price, once again, from 1st of January. So that is something to be aware of. And once again, we will share all the slides with you afterwards. We'll share the recording of this webinar. The information is also on our website. But if you have any questions about this or about the scholarships, which I'll share in the next slide, don't hesitate to contact Vessel. or Alina, our other recruiter, because they will be there to help you, to explain everything and to try and get you in for this year if you still want to benefit from the 2023 prices. So that's important. But we do know money does not grow on trees. And so we do have a few scholarships available for you. The first one is there's an early bird discount, and that's if you pay before a certain date for the Master in Management and the MBA. And there is a Dean's Development Fund, and that is MSM's way to help certain countries to make it slightly more affordable. So for, unfortunately, European countries do not benefit from the Dean's Development Fund, but people coming from Ghana or South Africa or India will benefit from the Dean's Development Fund. And the information is on our website, but it is based on country of residence, not your nationality. So if you're an Indian living in the Netherlands, then it's not valid for you. So that is important to check. And then there are other scholarships. We have an Academic Excellence and a Women Ambassadorship Scholarship, and then a Sustainable Development Goals Changemaker Scholarship, a Family Business or Entrepreneur Scholarship, and an NGO or a Public Service Scholarship. So if you think you could be eligible for one of these, don't hesitate to reach out to Vessel or to Anina. They are there to help you to clarify the scholarships, to make sure everything's clear. On our website, there is more information as well. So per program, there's more information, so don't hesitate to reach out. There is two important things that import for 2023. The scholarships was maximum discount of 40%, but for 2024, the 35% for the full-time MBA and the MM and 20% for the Global Flex Online MBA. So that's also why I say the prices have gone slightly up for the full-time MBA and the Master in Management, and the scholarship maximum discounts have decreased a little bit. There are two exceptions, the Academic Excellence and the Women Ambassadorship. Those are the two flagship scholarships, and they are slightly higher than the maximum discounts. But once again, all that information is on our website, and Vessel and Alina are there to clarify and help you with that. So don't hesitate to reach out, because I know it sometimes is a bit of a headache, and it would be a pity if you are eligible something and you haven't asked about it and you just assume you're not. So just check with us. Always better to be safe than sorry. So how do you apply, especially if you still want to join, apply before the 31st of December? Well, step one is to create a profile on our campus, on our portal. So that's campus.msm.nl. You create your account, and then you can start uploading documents. So for your CV, if you are applying for an MBA, you will need work experience of more than 3 years. You need to upload your bachelor, diploma, degree, and your transcript. It has to be in English, so that it needs to be translated. So make sure it's a verified translation. Once again, all the information, much more detailed, is on our website. You need to upload proof of English, and that's also specified more in detail on our website, but it's an IELTS of 6.5 or a TOEFL equivalent. In some cases, if you studied in English, but not in a, in some specific countries will accept it, and like England and Australia and America. But if you studied in English in one of the other countries, we might require an extra test like Duolingo. So we can always provide you with that information. You need to upload your passport, and then there's always the recommendations that you fill in on our website, and then there's the motivation answers. So that's slightly different to how we did it in previous years. So if you have looked at applying in the past, this is one thing that has changed. Instead of uploading a motivation letter, we have now within the actual application on the campus portal, where there are 3 questions and you need to answer each question. So that is something that's important to check out. And there's also a minimum wording of 500 to 700, somewhere between there, per answer. So that's something to prepare for as well. Once you upload all of that and you filled it all in, you pay an application fee of 95 euros. Once that's been paid, our admissions office will review everything and make sure it's all clear and correct. If it is, then they will invite you for an interview. The interview is done with 2 people at MSM. And during this interview, we'll just look a bit deeper into get to know you, who you are, make sure that MSM is a good fit for you and that you're a good fit for the program, and just to check your motivation and experiences and all of that. If the interview goes well and if you're happy and we're happy, then you will get a conditional admission to the program until you complete either your GMAT or the leveling courses. So that's something you do after you've been conditionally admitted. If you already have a GMAT, that's sufficient, so it needs to be 600 or higher. You could get a complete admission immediately. So each case is slightly different. But before the start of the program, in any case, for every single person in the program, they will either have to have a GMAT score of 600 or higher, or complete the 4 leveling courses. So that's accounting, statistics, economics, and finance. It's 4 courses that you have to do online before the start of the semester. It's for free, but you have to complete those if you don't have a GMAT. And everyone has to complete an academic writing course. This is something you do before the start of the program as well, to make sure that you know how to do the APA referencing and the plagiarism rules and all of that here at Maastricht School of Management. So we do that to help you. So once again, once you arrive in the program, you can really start already immediately without having all those issues of plagiarism and referencing. That is always such a plague to students in the beginning. So that's the application process. And in a nutshell, now I'm sure there are a lot of questions about that, and I have seen in the chat there's some questions going on. So Wessel, how about you, if you can speak, if your voice has come back enough to ask some of the questions, go for it.
Sure. Well, we received a lot of good questions, actually. So I will give you some to summarize. We received a lot of questions on scholarships and how they can best apply for them. You already talked about it a little bit, but what is generally the best way forward for them to get the scholarships they need?
Okay, I think the best thing now, firstly, the fact that you've joined this webinar is a great start, because already you've become aware of some of the opportunities. What we normally do is then we recommend that you send your CV through to either Wessel or to Alina. And Wessel, you can put your email address again just in the chat afterwards. And then together, Wessel or Alina will schedule in a call with you to go through it and discuss with you what are the best options for you. So then they'll help you decide together if any of the scholarships are available for you. Okay.
Perfect. All right. We received one question specifically about the fee payment. People were very interested in the difference between 2023 fees and 2024 fees. Generally, in order to get the 2023 fees, do they have to pay the full tuition fee, only partially? What is the best way for that?
So there is a partial fee. You don't have to pay the full tuition fee. I think, but it's something we can confirm. We need to double check that, but I think it's a 25% of the fee that needs to be paid to be considered as a down payment for the 2023 fees. So 25% of the net tuition fee.
All right, perfect. Let's see if we have any other specific questions. There were some questions about the leveling courses, if you could tell a little bit more about that. Mostly how long they are and the areas maybe.
Okay, so for the leveling courses, like I mentioned, there are 4 courses. And it really depends on your background. Well, actually, maybe Malome and Simon can answer these because they had to do them more recently. I do not like the leveling courses. I find them very boring. Maybe Malome and Simon enjoyed them. But I mean, it depends on your background, right? So Malome, how was it for you, the leveling courses?
Just quickly, I didn't want to go through the GMAT route because it's a long, tedious process of studying and doing that. So I opted for the leveling courses. they're not necessarily easier, they're just different. And specifically stuff like statistics, if you haven't done it in a while, you need to study up on it before attempting it. But the leveling courses were really good in preparing us for the work that we're going to be doing and the courses that we're going to be doing. So if you can take time out, do it seriously and sit down and study, you'll probably do well in some of the courses that are the economics, statistics, accounting, and I forgot the last one.
Finance.
But yeah, finance, yeah.
Simon, for you?
Yeah, I just want to agree with Malone. For myself can say that I had a finance background, so it was in finance a little bit easier. But the other subjects I definitely had to study, and please don't estimate this effort because you really, really need a few days for each course. And when the program starts, a lot of new impression will, you will be confronted with a lot of impressions. And if you then have to do the leveling courses, it's quite challenging. So I can definitely recommend it to do it before the program starts. So you can actually don't have this burden on you to start the program, because you definitely will need a few days for each subject to complete it.
Yeah. Generally, I say if it's not a subject you're really comfortable with, take at least a week per subject. Great. Vessel, what other questions?
I think Wessel's connection froze. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about the career perspectives after the MBA, MM. Where do people find careers? How long can it take? A little bit more about that.
Okay, excellent question. Very difficult to answer because it really depends on the background. It depends on the market. Each year is different. We actually do have a webinar coming up on that next year, where we talk more specifically about career services and what you can expect and how important an MM or an MBA is for your future career. And some students get a job even before they're finished, while others, I'd say, it takes about 3-4 months. It depends how much they started searching beforehand. It depends on their background. I know, for example, right now the market is a bit slow for people in supply chain, but I know people in finance. I mean, Simon, you also had that. So finance is doing really well. Most of the students that have finance background have been doing really, really well in finding jobs. But I'd say on average, that's somewhere between the 3 and 6 month mark, all our students find jobs. The only ones that don't are the ones that also decided first to take a break, to go travel, that said that they're not in such a rush to find a job and they wanted to first just take a bit of downtime. But on average, I'd say 90-95% of the students within 3 to 6 months have a job. Most of them find in the country they want. So many of our students find a job here in the Netherlands. Some students go back to their own countries because that's what they wanted to do. And then the type of countries, markets they go into, it also really depends. Some are in the big famous companies, the KPMGs and the Ubers and the Teslas and the Booking.coms. And while others prefer going into more of a startup vibe, and they're also doing exceptionally well there. So it's there's not a right or a specific direction that our students take, because once again, they're so diverse in their backgrounds and the countries and the experiences, that it also ends up being very diverse in where they end up going afterwards as well. I don't know, Vessel or Nikki, if there are any other questions.
Yes, so we are also talking about combining an MBA with personal life, with having family with you. Can you tell us a bit how our students experience that, and also maybe with the visa, how it works?
Okay, so obviously if you want to keep working, if you want to have your family also be more financially stable, then the Global Flex Online MBA is by far the best option. So if you are hesitating, don't hesitate to reach out to us about that or join the webinar on that, because we'll give much more information on that. Because for family life, It's been created on purpose to give more breathing space with that in mind. If you're doing a full-time MBA and you want to manage your family, it does become more challenging. But this year as well, Malomi, I think you can talk more from experience. You had several people in your class that had children that came with, right? And Hannah, and they all managed.
Yeah, there were some people that were working as well, and for I think 8 months within the MBA and after. The most important thing is to understand that towards the end of the year, it does get quite difficult, especially when you have the thesis that you need to write and you still have some courses that you're wrapping up. So that period is quite challenging. So if you are thinking about working or have other commitments, maybe try to get a little bit of time towards the end so that you can finish it in the time that's necessary. And yeah, I just wanted to also touch on the OKP because I had an OTS scholarship, but there are different scholarships that might also be available. So just chat to the team and maybe you can get a different type of scholarship in OKP or OTS or in the NUFIC website if they're still available.
Yeah. So good that you mentioned that. Regarding OTS, at the moment that has not been renewed. That's why we didn't talk about that one specifically. We're still waiting on 1 or 2 countries to hear if they're going to do it. That would be Indonesia, India, and South Africa, but we don't think so. OKP, on the other hand, that is a scholarship offered by the Dutch government. And we're still waiting from the Dutch government to confirm that it's taking place again next year. Normally we get that information by January, and our admissions office are waiting for that information very, very impatiently, so that as soon as we have that information, we will definitely send it through to everyone, especially the countries that we know are, OKP eligible. So just keep an eye on the emails that we send through. We'll be regularly updating you on those options as well. So thank you for highlighting that. I know I saw it somewhere in a question, so it's good that we talked about that. Yeah, I don't know, Vessel or Nikki, if there are any other questions?
No, I don't think there's any other questions that we cannot answer after the webinar either. So I think we're good to go.
Perfect. Well then, we're perfectly on time. It's 4 o'clock. Malomi and Simon, thank you both for your presence here today. I think just hearing your experiences again just really helped. It helped me as well, just because I don't see it as a student anymore, so it's really nice to see some of the experience you've had. So thank you for taking the time to clarify that for the audience today. Thank you, Vessel, for sacrificing your voice for asking those questions. Thank you, Nikki, for jumping in as well when Vessel's screen froze. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope that it was interesting. Once again, don't hesitate to reach out to us if you've got any questions. We know it's a very big decision that you have to make. And we know it's important and it's a lot of money, so don't hesitate to reach out to us so that we can help you in clarifying anything that still might be unclear for you. There we go. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.